Hey, strangers. You haven't seen me for a couple of weeks, so this is number 190. And as the title below says, I am going to be talking about what happened at the weekend, where I saw the Twilight Sad at the Glasgow Barrowlands, the best venue in the world. Sorry to all the other venues, it's the best one. And if you've been there, you know it's true. This is probably going to be the nearest thing actually to an actual genuine vlog that they has, as opposed to my normal ones where I'm talking about records and things like that. I'm going to be talking about my experiences, and I haven't done one of these for a couple of weeks as well, so I'm going to tell you why that has not happened. Somewhat oddly, I seem to get more viewers the less I do, and the more comments, the less of these episodes I load up. So, wow, maybe I'll take a hint and see how that goes. But the past few weeks have been pretty tough actually. I was off work the week before last. I wasn't particularly well, and I needed to rest. I had some bad stuff happen, and I needed to just rest and heal. And I felt, much better by that. Sometimes you just need to repair yourself, and all that rubbish about productivity and working really really hard and stuff is, the body's a machine, and you can't run it at full pelt all the time. Sometimes you need to stop, you need to rest, you need to listen to your body. And obviously, I had that major health incident that happened about 6 months ago now, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. And I've become better at listening to my body since then. I mean, one of the things about getting older is, and oh God, I'm going to be 50 next year. Don't tell anyone, but I am. I kind of still think of myself as 38 with an extra couple of years and a bit of experience on me. Well, I know that's not true. One of the things about growing older is that you find that parts of your body perhaps don't always work the way you thought they once did, and you get up off the chair and you go, oh God, that something's twanged, that hurts, and you go, is that just being a little bit older, or is that being just a little bit like, is that part of being my age, or is that something that's genuinely worse than being my age? Is that something I need to worry about? And there's no real kind of roadmap around that at all. So I was also off this week, or at least most of this week. I tested positive for COVID, and that I thought again, hope against hope, that I might be invincible. I thought, well, actually, it's the first time I'd had a positive test throughout the whole of my life so far, and I thought maybe it's because I felt a bit rough, but that's because I went to Glasgow for the weekend. I didn't sleep a huge amount. I sang an awful lot. Um, and I thought, is it because I just haven't done 2 gigs in a row for the past 2.5 years? Is there another reason why? And as it turns out, I probably got COVID when I was there. And I don't know who from, and I don't particularly care. It's a risk, and one that I was very happy to take, to be honest. But I tested positive for COVID, and the past few days I haven't been as fast in my thinking. My thinking hasn't been as sharp. Certainly Monday, Tuesday, I felt like I've been thwacked by a bat. And if my life was a thing, it would be like the bit in the Rocky movies where they have the post-fight montage, and the guy's laid up and he looks awful, and he's like, Rocky, I hurt in places I didn't even know I had. It was like that. Um, but no, so I've had COVID as well, which has not been it was not in the plan, um, not in the plan at all. But what was in the plan, and this is something to do. Normally I show you records and stuff, but I'm not going to do that this time. I'm just going to show you gig tickets. Really, is after 2 years of delayed shows and 2 years of delayed gratification, I saw my favourite band again, and I think I'm going to have to say, undoubtedly, whilst I love many many bands, I haven't talked about the Twilight Sad on the Notcast before, and those of you who know me in real life, I can promise you I am real. I will not shut up about them on certain occasions, but they are my favourite band, and I first came into them probably 2014 when I heard, I think it was last January actually. I saw them first supporting editors at the Hammersmith Apollo in 2015, and before that, there was a gap in touring, so I hadn't had a chance to see them. But I was listening to the album, Nobody Wants to Be Here and Nobody Wants to Leave. And at the same point, the album that followed it, the All Ran More album, and I was like, this band are incredible, and where have they been, and why haven't I heard them before? And one of the great things about the Twilight Sad fan community is that there's not really much snobbery in there. It's like, well, you got to them, and that's what matters. It doesn't matter when. Most fan communities, there'll always be somebody that telling you that you weren't a real fan because you weren't born in 1958 and you didn't see them supporting Johnny and the Shits at the Crawley Cum Bucket. But Twilight Sad fans are very much along the lines of, you made it, that's what matters. You know, and what matters is not how long you've been into a band or how many shows you've seen. Now, you might not think that from me showing you lots and lots of pictures of records and talking about old gigs that I went to. But it's not about that. What matters is how much it means to you and how much you love it and how it affects you and how it speaks to you and how music is a map that helps you through the world and through your life, as opposed to anything else around how many times you've seen them. And, you know, I'm very lucky in so much as I've been able to see the bands that I love a lot over the years. I've made some sacrifices around that financially, possibly in terms of a career, possibly in terms of a personal life as well. But those have been my decisions. And if I'd only ever gotten to see some of my favourite bands once, you know, if I lived in let's say, Mexico, and the band would come around maybe once a decade and it would cost a month's salary maybe, or if it was in Chile, for example, and I just wouldn't have had a chance to see the band at all unless I was the one that went on tour to see the band. You know, it's not about that. I'm just lucky to have been relatively near geographical proximity to the bands that I love and had the opportunities to be able to do so, and I've taken them up. It doesn't make me any more or any less a fan than anybody else. And on the 2018-2019 tour for Twilight Sad, I think I saw them 21 times on that tour. I was able to do that, and it was my privilege to be able to do that. But if I'd only seen them once, that still would have been, you know, an experience. And they're just one of the best live bands on the planet, in my opinion. I have seen some of the bitchy comments from Cure fans on Twitter who legitimately can't understand how anybody could like the band, even though their fearless leader, Sir Robert Smith, loves the Twilight Sad. They're like, no, she must know the band. And it's like, no, actually, some people just really, really like this band and you don't. And there's no point. I mean, unless you like Def Leppard or someone, or, Red Hot Chili Peppers. I'm always reminded of that quote by Nick Cave, where he says, somewhere, some terrible music is always being played, and I ask, what is this shit? And the answer is always Red Hot Chili Peppers. Terrible band. Sorry, guys. You're awful band. I really don't understand it. I mean, you know, I got over the fascination with my penis when I was about 14, and you guys are like 54, and most of you still haven't managed to do that. Maybe rock and roll is permanent adolescence. Who knows? But I got to see the Twilight Sad for the first time in 2.5 years this weekend. And it's also about 2 years since lockdown started. So I was due to see the Twilight Sad, as it says on these tickets here, Thursday the 16th of April and Friday the 17th of April 2020 to do quadraphonic shows at the Glasgow Barrowlands. And, you know, it was not something I was expecting, but it was something I was very, very pleased about. Their shows are always very, very meaningful to me. And so about a month before, when things started to get a bit lockdowny, a bit COVID-y, I was like, maybe these shows aren't going to happen. You know, hotels were booked, flights were booked, hugs were planned, you know, we were going to go crying. It was all going to be beautiful and glorious, and then it didn't happen. And then those shows, I think, were pulled back to, I think, October 2020. And then there were no shows. You know, I think I went to one show during the whole of lockdown between March the 7th, 2020 and September the 11th, 2021. I went to one show. I saw Pop Bleeds Itself in December in a seated show, which was weird. And then, so the Twilight Sad, well, I was due to see them on 16th, 17th of April. I think it was October 20. I think it was April 21. I think maybe there was a show in October 21 that was planned, or that got postponed, and then they said we're going to play the shows at the Glasgow Barrowlands Ballroom, the venue of dreams, on the 1st and 2nd of April 2022. And that was the thing I was hoping for. That was the thing where I know if I go to that gig, I will have survived the fire that tried to destroy my world, that was COVID, and some of the other things that happened recently. I had a similar feeling in 2015 when I saw U2 in Turin, the opening European show of the Innocence Tour, where I had a really, really rough end of 2014, early 2015, and sometimes the only thing that I had to look forward to, I mean, I know I've got family and friends and cats and stuff, but the only thing I had to look forward to, the mountain I was going to climb, was I'm going to live long enough to see U2 in Turin. And during COVID, my mountain that I had to climb was I had to live long enough to get to see the Twilight Sad again. That was my thing. I had a dream about seeing them in the middle of lockdown. I had a dream that I was at Barrowlands and I was on the rail and I was to the left, and I was singing and greeting to Cold Days in the Birdhouse, and Paul was there. And then on Saturday night that happened. On Saturday night, I had a moment where he took my hand and we were singing, and we were like yelling at the sky, the lyrics, and his partner took a beautiful photograph actually, which I'm going to show you because that's the kind of guy that I am. There it is. That's me and him, and I had a moment when it was happening when I'm like, I dreamed that. I was asleep in the middle of lockdown, and I had no idea that I was ever going to see a band again. I didn't know if I was going to see my friends again. I didn't know if I was going to leave the house ever again. But my dream was I was going to go and see that band. And I was dreaming, and in my dream Paul was there. And then on Saturday night it happened, because I remember waking up and, oh, that's a cat. Hang on a second, I'll let him in. Well, I say the cat, I mean a cat. I've got two cats. I've got an old lady called Mog who is 14 and extremely very dignified indeed, and doesn't even tolerate being touched for weeks on end. I've got Price, who's considerably younger, as you can probably hear by the squeak here, who's coming to see me. Hang on a second, dude. Do you want to come and talk to the people that live in YouTube? Here he is. Look at that lovely, gorgeous little floofster. He doesn't like being held like that, though. He's very much a love us on his terms kind of cat, so he's going to nibble at my feet now for a little bit. But I had this moment on Saturday night, and I was like, I dreamed this in the middle of lockdown. This was the thing that I dreamed was going to happen, and it happened. And it was the thing where I was like, if I get to this show, if I get to Barrowlands, if I get to see the band there, then I've survived a fire. And my life has been put through fire a couple of times before. As I said, there was U2 in Turin, 2014 to 2015, and around about 2013 to 2015, I hit a very big number on my birthdays, and I had a moment where I kind of thought, is being older just going to be like a steady and slow decline, where everything kind of hurts and your back always hurts and you can't see properly and you don't feel hopeful and you don't feel joy and you don't feel happiness and you don't feel, splendor and beauty anymore. And I'm very, very pleased to say that, life threw some experiences at me and it threw some bands at me, and I realized that I was going to survive that. Okay, there were going to be parts of me that ached that hadn't previously ached, because that's part of being older. But the other part of it is I was able to hope again. And one of the big bands actually that I fell in love with, that made me realise I could still fall in love with bands, I could still feel the way that I did when I was a teenager about new bands, was the Twilight Sad. And so for me, that was the thing. And I barely listened to the band during lockdown. And the reason I barely listened to the band was because it hurt me, because I remembered everything that I'd lost. Because I had this lovely community of people that go to see the band on a very regular basis. Almost all of them are wonderful human beings, and I love spending time with them. Yeah, they make me laugh, they make me happy. They give good hugs, I give them good hugs back. We go drinking, we go singing and dancing and whatever, and then we go and see bands and we go crying. But it's a wonderful kind of community around there. And at the same point, the music is fantastic. I absolutely love this band. There's this combination of all the things that I love that somehow works perfectly inside this band's sound. Both the acoustic stuff that they do and the full-on face-melting Raise of the Lost Ark cacophony ending type sound that they have. And it was there's an emotional experience because I didn't know if I'd ever get to see the band that I love again. I didn't know if I'd get to go out of my town again. I didn't know if I'd get to go and stay over to see a band again. I didn't know if I'd ever get on a plane again. I didn't listen to the band because it hurt, because I missed it. I missed going to see the band, and I missed the experiences that I had seeing this incredible act. And for those of you who know, obviously, I did go and see a lot of live shows. And I did think that if I didn't go and see a band play live, I might actually die. Now, COVID has proven that that's not necessarily the case, and that I can go long periods of time without seeing a band, and it won't actually kill me. It'll just feel like some kind of spiritual death. But I proved that I survived it. And I thought, if I get to Barrowlands, I've survived this. I've survived the trial by fire. And I think the past 2 years of COVID were really, really difficult for all of us. We all lost people that we loved. We loved the life that we loved. We lost a way of life. We also lost hope, actually, because our current government in the UK are really terrible at this. They're really bad, and it would have lasted a shorter period of time. It would have been over quicker, and more people would have lived if we had a more competent government in power. And it felt like we were all collectively as a nation punished for the incompetence of the people that were in charge. And they had oh, hello, dude. Sorry, I'm gonna have to fuss a cat here. He's come up and he's told me that he wants me to stroke his ears. Oh, he's gone. Typical. So I didn't listen to the band very much. I had a dream about seeing them, and I woke up and I was so sad because I'm like, am I ever going to see this band again? Am I ever going to experience that sense of elation and euphoria which I have when I see them? And the answer was, I didn't know. I didn't know if it was ever coming back. And there's a number of sad songs which are around, the idea of someone going away and coming back. Cold Days in the Birdhouse has this line, and every time they play it, it really does something to me. There's a line where he goes, you're breathing in smoke signs like a puppet that's told to drive. And there's a line where he goes, will you come back? Will you come back? Dude, don't sharpen your claws on me. I'm a person. Choose a sofa or something. And every time I hear that lyric about will you come back, and it gets me straight in the heart every time, because I've lost people that I love. I've had relationships that have ended, in my opinion, before their natural time, and sometimes the relationships have ended because of my stupidity. And if I could go through and live my life again, I'd do things very differently. And all those emotions kind of come back whenever they sing about will you come back, will you come back. And there's also the acoustic song, well, on the Aura More album, but the title track to the album, Nobody Wants to Be Here and Nobody Wants to Leave, is very much around, the opening lyric is, can we go back, can we go back? And that was the only song that I listened to for days, sometimes during lockdown. I wanted to go back to the world that existed beforehand. Maybe a little bit different, but mostly the same, where I could see the band that I love and people that I love, and I could spend time with my friends and my family. And listening to the Twilight Sad was a comfort. And also at the same point, it made me quite sad because I clearly missed people and things. Dude, I'm still here. I'm not a sofa. Sorry, I'm cat. And so it was only on the Friday morning I got on the train. I was going to the airport, and I put on the All Ran More album, and I cried on the train on the morning. because it was like at last it was happening. I hadn't dared to hope that I would get to see the band again. The band had cancelled a number of shows beforehand. They were due to play 2 acoustic shows in Paisley in October 2021. I wasn't able to go because I had a very serious health event. I was in hospital. They thought it might have been a cardiac arrest. They thought it might have been something else. As it turned out, it was some form of kind of like non-specific seizure stroke fit, but my health, I just couldn't go to the show. And then the next shows that I could go to, bearing in mind that they'd rescheduled Barrowlands, I think 4 times. So I'd had 8 shows where I'm like, I'm going to see them. This is the date that I'm going to see my favourite band again. And all those dates fell until last Friday. And then there were the acoustic shows that they played, but they played 4 acoustic shows. They were due to do 4 more acoustic shows. I was due to go to all 4 of those. I couldn't make it because they cancelled the shows because of COVID, which is a very good reason to cancel shows. And then there were 2 warm-up shows for the Barrowland shows, which were Leeds and Stockton. And those shows were cancelled as well because one of the touring party had COVID. And I was just kind of sat there just going, there's, 8 shows or 10 shows or 12 shows or 14 shows where I thought I'm going to see them on this day, and they didn't happen. And it was only on the morning when I was flying to Glasgow, I was on the train and I thought, this is actually going to happen. This is going to be real. I'm going to stand in the room again with my favourite band and we're going to go crying. And it was I thought it would never come. I really didn't think it was ever going to happen. And then on Friday it happened. And there was an announcement on Friday. I suspected something like this might happen. Now, Andy on guitar wasn't able to play for personal reasons. And Alex McKay, who is Mogwai's live guitarist and keyboard player, was a stuntman for the show and played Andy's parts. And on drums, the band's normal drummer, or Sebastian Seb, fantastic drummer, lovely guy, had an infectious laugh, wasn't able to play. And Seb is in America, so you can imagine the touring logistics of flying over for 2 shows in a post-COVID world. They're pretty tight, and for whatever reason, Seb wasn't able to make it. So Grant from Frightened Rabbit played drums, and on one hand, there's an element of, I wish I'd known sooner. But the other hand was, at the time that it probably became obvious that the band couldn't play with the 5 people, plans were too far gone. People had flown over from America, people had flown over from France or Sweden or Germany, and it was too close. And there was a lot of criticism directed towards the band that I think was really unfair. And people going, oh, it's not really the Twilight Sad without Andy. And I was like, look, we've waited 2 years for this. Are we going to not do this because one person or 2 people can't make it? When you see a great band, part of seeing a great band is around, not just what happens on stage, but what happens between the stage and the crowd. There's almost there's a dialogue between the crowd and the musicians, and that's what makes live music amazing. It's not just standing in the same room as the songs that changed your life. It's hearing and seeing and experiencing the response of thousands of people, or if dozens, depending upon where you're seeing them, thousands of people of a similar mindset, of a similar heart, that love this band. And we all want everyone to succeed, and the shows happened. Grant played drums, Alex did a blinder on guitar, and it was what we needed, really. So from a technical point of view, 2 things. I mean, first, Alex is a very, very different player to Andy, very different style. And I'm I absolutely love Andy's guitar style, by the way that he played, especially on some of the earlier stuff like the Twilight Sad EP, 14 Autumns, 15 Winters, Not this one. This one's all accordion, by the way. Forget the Night Ahead. Albums made as a 4-piece with that crushingly beautiful melodic uh, feedback, very similar to the Jesus and Mary chain, but better, with this perfect, gorgeous tone that sounds like a jet engine taking off in just like, scope and impact. And Alex is a very different player. So when I was watching the performance, it was, if you'd never seen them, you'd have probably been like, yeah, really good, tight band. But if you've seen a band dozens and dozens of times, and you know just how well they play together because they've been playing together for 15, 20 years, having a different guitar player is just a little bit of a difference. Alex did an incredible job learning 18, 19 songs at relatively short notice. And I suspect Leeds and Stockton were cancelled so that rehearsals could happen, so that the band would be able to execute the songs in the style which they needed on stage. But Alex did a great job. Yeah, if you're a real snob, you might go, well, it's slightly different, and some of the guitar tones were very near, but not 100% precise. Some of the ways in which some of the melodic kind of approach to some of the guitar, perhaps a little bit different, but it felt right. Obviously, I would have preferred Andy there, but Alex did an incredible job, and there are some people that really were very disparaging towards that. And there was no kindness in any of those statements. I was kind of like, look, do you want us to cancel the show that we have wanted to play for 2 years, what we've rescheduled 3 or 4 times? Do you want us to play with a replacement guitarist and do a really good job? Or do you want us to postpone it again? And maybe 6 months from now, we might actually have that happen. The show happened, and it was the right decision to go ahead with it. As I also said, Seb wasn't there. Grant from Frightened Rabbit was there. Also Master System, by the way, who don't get enough love in my opinion. And I, for my sins, I fully open about it. I never saw Frightened Rabbit. I never saw Master System. I got into Master System first in March 2018. YouTube brought up the first song from the Master System album, and Notes on a Life Not Quite Lived. I was watching, I think, an Editors show, and Editors and Master System shared a guitarist, Justin Lockie, who's, I think, a fantastic guitar player and just has a brilliant approach to things. And they played Notes on a Life Not Quite Lived, and I was like, oh God, I found another band. I knew within like a minute of that song, I was like, I found another band that I love. And it was all a journey of discovery, and I ate up all of the stuff really, really quickly. So this was, I think, probably early March 2018. So I was like, okay, this band are really good. Half of them are in Frightened Rabbit, and I'm right, so I'm going to go for their albums. I went for Painting of a Panic Attack first because it was the most recent one, and then Scott went missing, and then Scott died, and then I lost a band I'd just fallen in love with before I'd even had a chance to really get to know them. I wasn't sure I'd see Grant play drums again. Obviously, I found it difficult to listen to some of their music because it reminded me of a band that I loved for a very short period of time, but I could never get to know in the way lots of other people had got to know them. But Grant and James and the other members of the Twilight Sad are friends and have been friends for a very long period of time. And when Seb wasn't able to make the shows, I mean, it's the right decision. He's a great drummer, and I think Grant did a great job as well. He's a different drummer to Seb. He's got a different set of skills, but he fit, and that's what you need from a musician more than anything else, is that they fit. I've seen bands where musicians don't fit, and it's weird, and it's kind of like watching, kind of like one of those children's stories, where they pass the piece of paper around the room, and people talk about different things, and then it ends up with a princess that's also a blood-sucking vampire in space. But no, I think Grant was a really good fit, and he played an excellent job of the show. But the thing that really mattered, I think, about the show was that it happened. It happened. For me at least, I needed this. I needed something which we can go back to the world the way that it used to be in some way. we can go back and we can experience, Frightened Rabbit, can't get to experience them. Twilight Sad, can get to experience them and experience them now in 2022, older, wiser, but also at the same point still recognisably the band that I loved, and the people that I loved, and everyone was there. And there's too many people, there's like a limit to the number of people that you can tag on Facebook. Well, I think I didn't even bother trying to tag all the people I saw because it was too many. Yeah, it must have been 60, 70 people that have only ever lived in my computer or in my phone for the past 2.5 years. And to be able to just stand in the same room as them and go, "You're real, and you've got a voice, and I can talk with you," and all that stuff. It was something which I didn't know. I didn't think it was going to happen for a very long time. I really, really didn't, and I was really hurting about that. And then, obviously, the band played, and everything came back. I remembered everything, every moment, every feeling, and all the things on my journey to today. Almost all of those songs have a line or a series of lines in the lyrics which speak to my journey through life. From the opening song in the set, 10 Good Reasons for Modern Drugs, which has a complex lyric around love and romance and relationships and the dysfunction that sits inside those. There's a line about, do they understand you, and do they call out your name, do they even miss you? All these boys look the same. And even though the lyric is specific from a gender perspective, I can understand and I can empathise and I can feel the part of that lyric that's around, are you being respected for who you are or for what you can provide? Is a guy going out with you because you're a girl, or is he going out with you because you're you? And vice versa. And if I suppose, I think modern dating is a thing where perhaps exclusivity isn't perhaps as common as it once was. I am rusty and out of date with these things, but when I was perhaps far more active on the dating scene, the concept of exclusivity was a given, which it isn't these days, and that's a strange and unusual kind of thing for me. Just even if I'm watching something like Teen First Dates, I've watched a lot of television during lockdown. Okay, it was a long 2 years, and I completed Netflix. So be gentle with me for watching bad TV. We've all done it. I know we don't want to admit it, but we've all watched terrible, terrible television on our sofas in the past 2 years, hoping that nobody will ever know we've really been watching Made in Chelsea or something. It's okay. It really is. I won't tell anyone. So, watching Teen First Dates, and you go, oh, right, so that's what dating's like these days, and that was in 10 Good Reasons for Modern Drugs, and the next song is Shooting, Dennis Hopper, Shooting, which I have a complex relationship with that song, and perhaps when I do the album by album things, and I'll do the album by album things for the Twilight Sad albums, I will talk about how that album, that song, the first time I heard that song, I'm like, how did I not know I needed this song in my world? The third song is That Summer at Home I Became the Invisible Boy, which I think takes its title from a line in Stand By Me. And again, there's a line in that about the cunt sits at his desk, he's plotting away, and they're sitting behind the table and they're talking behind your back. I've been in situations where there has been a cunt sat at the desk, plotting away, sitting behind a table, talking behind my back, planning my downfall and failing. I never come to these situations wanting a battle. But, I faced existential crisis where people have tried to destroy me. They've tried to destroy my life and the world that I've built. And I've had to fight with every ounce of my soul to maintain the things that for them it's a dispassionate rolling of a business or an organisation. Whereas to me, it's like, this is my life you're trying to destroy. This is my universe that you're trying to unravel. And I am fully invested, all in. I'm up to my neck in this. To you, it's a transaction. And then there's Last January, which is, again, a song about relationships, like "Don't Move" is, and actually almost all of their songs are about relationships, but they're written in the same kind of way that David Gedge writes about relationships, which is an observational kind of view around human politics and how humans can be kind and they can be cruel to each other. But there's also "I'm Not Here," which to me at least is a song about overindulging in pleasure. And I've had years of my life where the only way I was able to survive and break through them and exist as a coping mechanism was to say, "I'm not here. This isn't happening. This isn't me. This is a situation. It's not representative of who I am." And there's some lyrics in "I'm Not Here" around, drinking everything in sight, and don't want to be around you anymore. I don't want to be around me anymore. Those type of things, where I kind of was listening to them and going, God, yeah, it's describing my struggle with certain situations. Bad relationships, bad situations, coping mechanisms, and everything that goes with that. Um, there's there was a specific song which the band hadn't played since 2018, and it is on "Nobody Wants to Be Here" and "Nobody Wants to Leave." Song 4, "It Never Was the Same." This, when I first heard this album, and I was like, right, so I was like, "There's a Girl in the Corner," that's really good. Then I had "Last January," "I Could Give You All That You Don't Want," "It Never Was the Same," and "Nobody Wants to Be Here" and "Nobody Wants to Leave." And I was like, this album speaks to me in the ways in which hardly any other album has done for well over a decade. This is a life-changing album, and I know very, very early on in the Notcast I talked about how important this record was to me. It still is, by the way. And they played the title track, It Never Was the Same. And "It Never Was the Same" has a lyric that's around, I really understood when I was listening to it at Barrowlands, is that it's a song that kind of detailed around how we'd all been through this enormous traumatic experience that was COVID, and we were never going to be the same out of that. Nothing was the same in this old town, and we were trying to make our way through it, and somehow we did, but it couldn't be the same. In the way that if you smash a plate and then you glue it back together, there's still the scars and the tears. Saying sorry is not going to make it better. So it never was the same. And yeah, I cried because I cry at Twilight Sad gigs, and I'm more than okay about that. And I'm more than okay with everybody else knowing that I do that. And in fact, if I don't do it, somebody might go, "Are you okay, hon?" Because that's what I normally do when I go to see them. The last 4 songs in the set always touch my heart. There's "Cold Days in the Birdhouse," "The Wrong Car," "Keep Yourself Warm," and "She Would Darken the Memory." And "Cold Days in the Birdhouse" has that lyric around when there's a cacophony of guitars and he sings about, "Will you come back? Will you come back?" And suddenly it's like, yeah. And that kind of builds on the same kind of lyric that we've got from "Nobody Wants to Be Here and Nobody Wants to Leave," is, "Will you come back?" Around, we've lost something. And it just hits me always right here around, I lost some things that were really important to me, and I'd love to go back and experience them again, but it can never be the same, even if that is what happens, because there'll always have been the knowledge there. And then there's "The Wrong Car," which is the 2010 EP, which when I talk about "The Wrong Car, I'll probably go into more detail about that. But "The Wrong Car" is an incredible epic song around making bad life decisions, about being on the right side of the wrong car, around going in and making a decision and realizing it's too late to go back. You can't go back. You can't change, the decision that you've made previously. It's there forever, and it's stuck. And history is an arrow, and it only goes one way. And there's a line in there around, "Will your stomach still ache about the wife that he will take? Because I'm always waiting to see you." And I can't really explain that lyric. I think somebody else understands that lyric. I think somebody else's wife understands that lyric. But they may not even know the song exists. Who knows? And then there's the cover version of "Frightened Rabbits," "Keep Yourself Warm." which always. I'd seen Grant play that at the Barrowlands. I never thought I'd see that. I mean, I thought I'd see it maybe on May the 10th of 2018. I thought I might go and see Frightened Rabbit to see it in the Barrowlands. May the 17th. I'm like, I'm never going to see Grant play drums on that song in the Barrowlands. And it's a song that to me I have survivor's guilt because things have tried to kill me and they've failed, and things have tried to kill other people and they've succeeded, and I lived and other people didn't live. And sometimes I'm going, what made me different? What made them different? And every time I hear that song, I think about all the feelings come back to me about the fact that I survived things that could have and maybe should have killed me, and they didn't. I lived, and other people didn't. And every time I hear that song, that's what I think. And man, I haven't got enough time to talk about that. I really haven't. And then the last song in the set was "And She Will Darken the Memory," the first single, which appears in various forms on the Twilight Sad EP and the 14 Autumns album as well. And there's just this enormous, phenomenal kind of spiraling cacophony of sound that just gets bigger and bigger and bigger until it explodes, and it's wonderful and beautiful. And I was just watching it, and I was going at the end, and I was going, we made it. We survived COVID. We survived 2 years of hell, and we made it out the other side. And aside from a couple of positive COVID tests that meant a couple of my friends couldn't be there, everyone I was hoping to see, everyone who could be there was there, and everyone who couldn't be there was loved and missed. And there was a time when I was like, I wasn't sure. I looked around at the end of the song, and there was a time when I thought, I wasn't sure I'd ever feel this again. I wasn't sure I'd ever experience this again. I wasn't sure if I'd rocked my last roll. I wasn't sure if I'd reached the end of that part of my life. I wasn't ready to say goodbye to it. I wanted to go back, and we did. I've had some really hard bloody times, and some really difficult things have happened, and some people have tried to destroy and hurt me, and I've survived them. And listening to this band takes the pain out of that experience, and it provides a map. And sometimes it provided a map when I was lost, but it was almost a dream. Like almost the past 2 years hadn't happened, or they'd happened and we'd woken up from them and we'd started to forget them. I never thought I'd see the band again at the Barrowlands. I never thought I'd see the band again, full stop. At certain points during COVID, I just didn't know if I'd ever get to see a band I loved again, and I did. And that's one of the reasons why I haven't done one of these for a couple of weeks. I was poorly, I was struggling, I was away, and something happened, and we survived. I've tested positive for COVID. So far, by the way, I think, was it 3 out of the 60 people I saw, including myself, tested positive for COVID. So, sorry, people. Promise it's not me, honest gov. But we made it, and I can't wait to see that band and my friends again. Yeah, that is it. It was so good to see everybody that I haven't met or haven't met for a very long time. So wonderful to spend time with my friends. I really missed you guys, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again. See you soon. Bye.